Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, President and CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. Tonight's show is partnered with ADP, the go-to place to better build and manage your business. And welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have special guest Atanai Nunez-Samaniego, ADP business consultant and friends. And we have some friends with us that she has brought, and we'll get to her in a minute. But before that, I would like to just tell you a little bit more about Atanai. She is the district manager for ADP. She provides expedited service, HCM expertise, HR and payroll consulting, and error correcting solutions powered by technology and AI to the accounting and small business community. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Ms. Atanai Nunez-Samaniego. Hey, Atanai, how are you today?
Hi, Kimberly. I'm well. How are you?
I am doing good. I'm excited that you are here with me tonight. We're finally getting this ADP Lunch and Learn series off and running, so this is exciting. But before we jump into all that, I know you have a friend on, so you want to introduce your guest with us this afternoon?
Yes, of course. Let me just say I'm super excited to be here as well to share all about the resources that ADP has to offer. It's kind of a full circle moment for you. I know we've been working on a lot of things on the back end, but as I mentioned, I have my licensed retirement partner, Natasha Hall, here. We work hand in hand as business consultants together with business owners. So hi, Natasha.
Hi.
Hey.
So glad to be here. Super excited to kind of talk through some things that we see out talking with small business owners. So super grateful to be here and excited for our conversation today.
Well, I'm excited to have you both on. And, there's a lot that needs to be said about ADP. I know you guys have been around for many years. So before we dive into some of the things we're going to talk about in this series, why don't you guys tell us a little bit more about ADP and what you actually do? Because I know people have heard of you, but, sometimes people have a tendency to forget. So why don't you guys tell us, give us a little intro on ADP as a whole?
Yeah, of course. So ADP does a lot of things. I feel like when people hear about ADP, they think of this huge company that works with big businesses to offer, payroll and HR. When in reality, yes, we do offer those resources, but specifically what Natasha and I work with, we work in the small business sector. So that's anywhere with businesses anywhere from 1 to 49 employees, and we're really as business consultants helping them with payroll, their HR resource too, but also other offerings like retirement, workers' comp, making sure they're compliant with the state, making sure all their tax filings are done, their time and attendance, all the little nitty and gritty things that people don't really talk about when going into a business, but we take care of all that.
Right. And I think that the big thing, too, is that a lot of times being a small business, we all assume that we have to have several employees, several staff before we can even think about talking to a company or organization like yours. So, I think this is a good opportunity for you to take this myth away. Can you tell us that process a little bit?
Yeah, so the process with ADP is really simple. I know with our partnership, we actually have a landing page with provided links where business owners will be able to get a complimentary HR screening with me and Natasha and all of my partners. We'll go ahead and talk about an employee count, kind of the stage of their business, go over their HR screenings that they currently have. Let's say they have an employee handbook, making sure they're set up correctly with the state, because some states vary with withholding tax IDs, state unemployment tax IDs, making sure they have workers' comp. So going through there, and at the end of the day, also thinking about retirement, making sure, because I feel like what people or business owners, they might shy away from is putting stuff into retirement. That's hence why we have Natasha today to give us more detail on that, but making sure that, every business, no matter what size, is set up for success.
Right.
And it all just starts with one employee.
And that's the
which
key.
Could be themselves.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's what I like what you just said, is that it's about setting yourself up for success. And I also realize you also provide a plan, a startup plan for people who are new in business and just trying, even if they don't have the business prepared to go, you have documentation that they can review. And that's the thing I love about ADP, is that you guys are all about the learning phase. It's not just about, hey, this is what we can give you and this is what you're going to pay for. It's truly setting that person up for success. And I know, even for myself, I did not realize that ADP provided these avenues for people who are just, like I said, if it's just one person in business. And I think that's the most important, because that's usually the biggest fear that we have when we're coming into businesses, knowing what those resources are available, or do we have to be a huge success before we can reach out to people, and such as your organization and these companies as ADP. I've had the opportunity to understand ADP because of working with other organizations and other businesses. We use the big part was the HR piece, understanding the payroll and understanding the retirement, right? But not really truly understanding all the other things that come into play with that. So touch a little bit for me, Antonia, about the startup. You have a guide that is provided that people can review. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so what ADP does is, we pay 1 in 5 Americans, so all the data and everything, we have so much to offer in every single industry. Quite frankly, from restaurants all the way from landscaping, all the way from white collar and blue collar. So that's the beauty of ADP. The guidebook really just talks about, okay, so I want to start my business. One, do I have funding? Okay, I have funding. I have my location. I'm ready to start hiring employees. How does that hiring process look like? ADP offers these resources that we have, like with ZipRecruiter and other partnerships, to tailor it to every business owner's needs. Then after that, we'll talk about payroll, because payroll is important. It's how people are going to get paid at the end of the day. Are they going to be W-2, 1099 employees? What type of work does every business do? And then you go into the state filings. Some states require you to have state IDs, and then the process could be, some states take 2 weeks, and other states you get them immediately. So making sure you're aware of those changes, and then in the filings, how you're set up, with is it monthly, quarterly, weekly. It all depends on the business and the amount of work you do. And then we talk about, do you have the proper HR? Do you need an employee handbook? What type of work do you do? What type of resources are you trying to offer to your employees? What benefits do you want to do? Are there any tax savings that you are trying to get by offering a benefit to your employee? So it's kind of like that. It's never really too early to have a conversation. I know, I feel like when people talk about payroll, they're like, oh, I need to have 3 or 4 employees.
Right.
Honestly, no, you can start with 1, and you can start with paying yourself and making that process.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's, like I said, I think a big part of it is fear. And the big part of that fear is because you don't have the knowledge. And I'm so thankful that we have this partnership, so they have the opportunity to continue to educate people the way that they need to be educated. And that those questions that they've been scared to ask, we're literally throwing them out to you. So it's like, hey, they're here. You don't have to worry. Nobody's going to judge you for not knowing, because this is how you learn. So now let's kind of dive into what we're going to be discussing. And like I said, this is a monthly series that we're going to be starting. And we're so excited about this Lunch and Learn series that we're doing as a part of the podcast. And I love doing the podcasting because it reaches more people. This podcast alone is at the top 10% globally. So that means we are global, all over the world, where people are actually learning and listening. And so even though I'm not sure how far ADP reaches globally, but at the end of the day, we'll be able to, connect you with Antonia. And then also, we will make sure that if you're outside of the areas that she is currently in, that we can make sure that everybody's connected properly. So let's dive into, Natasha, go ahead and let's hear what you have to say about the retirement side and whatever else you would like to share with us this evening. So welcome on and aboard, Natasha.
Yeah, awesome. Like I said, so happy to be here. And I love a lot of the points that Atanai's made about, you're never too small, because I think that's what I emphasize, especially on the retirement piece, right? Like she's mentioned that the payroll can be kind of overwhelming. And, when you're just starting out, you always feel, I think it's common for small business owners to feel like they're too small. And I think what's so cool is we get to work with, single owner companies that are just starting out. A lot of times they might start as like a side hustle. And then we just deep dive in and make them think about things that maybe they didn't get into business for. And that's where kind of I come in from assisting Atanai and her clients with the idea of potentially retiring someday. Because I think it's so cool that entrepreneurs all across the country, and like you mentioned, globally, are starting their own companies. And very often they forget about, maybe putting some of the money that they're making aside for their future self. So really my job is to just come right alongside the payroll conversation and say, hey, look, you're paying yourself today, you're paying your employees today. How can we make sure, you're paying yourself, your future self as well? How are we setting yourself up for someday to hopefully retire too? So that's really my role kind of within this whole process is, hey, if you're talking about payroll, you're talking about, future goals within your company, how does retirement, like a 401k benefit, potentially fit in with a small business? And my job is to educate them. And I think that's what this podcast is all about, learning more.
Exactly. So what retirement options do they have to choose from? Obviously, you have to gather the information, a lot of it, before you can pick one, but just kind of give us a little quick overview of what that may look like.
Yeah, I will tell you that the retirement industry is, it's tough to understand, to be honest. And I think that both the good and bad of the industry, it can be very complicated because of the tax implications. But the short answer is it can get very specific really quick. So that's why we always kind of do one-off processes. They can take 5 minutes with me, talking with the business owner to kind of learn their specific goals. But at a high level, there's an option for every business owner. Like Atanai said, even if there's a one employee, ADP can help offer company-sponsored plans. So if a business owner is starting on payroll, there's several options. The most common is obviously the 401k. That's the most familiar. A lot of flexibility in those types of plans. There's also what's known as a simple IRA. It's kind of like a baby brother to a 401k. There's less flexibility, but can also be a great option for somebody starting out. There's also a SEP IRA, which is common for kind of single employee companies, but it's just themselves. So those are kind of like the three main plan options that we talk through to help find the best solution for each individual company.
Okay. So I guess I want to kind of focus a little bit more on the individual, because like I said, a lot of people who are coming in business, they're thinking, hey, there's a future here, but we don't know. So being able to sit down immediately and talk about their, their retirement, people just don't think that far ahead. So dive in a little bit more on the process of is it called SAFE again? I'm sorry, I heard you on that. Yep. So so talk a little bit more into that.
Yeah, so it just really depends on a lot of things, because I think when it comes to retirement, a lot of people think employee count when really it's more of a tax play. And so when I talk business owners, it's really, hey, how much money are you expecting to make at this? Because that's really what drives a lot of the type of plans is, hey, the limit on how much you can put into it. So like I said, there's a SEP IRA, there's a simple IRA, and there's a 401k, and they all have different limits, and it kind of depends on how much they're paying themselves through payroll, and there's a lot of moving pieces on the back end. But I will tell you a majority of the plans that I start are for single owner companies, right? Okay. Because those are sometimes the ones that are most profitable.
Right.
Because sometimes when you start adding headcount and things like that, you're kind of becoming an established business. You might have a brick and mortar and your expenses are going up. So sometimes they aren't as profitable. And really the business owners that really need a retirement plan are the ones that are just working for themselves by themselves, right? Because they're not working for another company. They don't have access to a retirement plan through, another job or another means. So yeah, there's a couple different options, but usually it's more of a drive of how much could you afford to put away and how much are we trying to avoid on taxes is really the big play, especially when it's just one owner.
Right. Because a lot of times people don't understand the process of, hey, you're saving money now, but when you decide to pull that money out and it's time for that retirement, that you will have to pay taxes. And a lot of people shun from that because they are concerned about paying those taxes. So what is some of the education that you guys provide in reference to the retirement side? Now, I know you guys have monthly type programs and, some of the things that I have been advertising because I think it's so important that people understand that there's always something going on at ADP that can keep people reinforced and provide those resources to keep their mind going and understand that these resources are here, but you have to learn to educate yourself by action, by getting involved, right? So, it's one thing to have it, but it does nothing if you don't listen and learn, right?
Yeah, I think it's so fun because it's kind of twofold. When a business owner sits down to me, I think it's so cool because I can kind of bring, like I said, the complicated, knowledge of the industry and really tailor it to what they're looking for. So kind of upfront, I think it's a sigh of relief a lot of times when business owners talk with me because they said, I feel overwhelmed when I search it online and it's so much resources and I don't know what to do, right? So kind of the upfront, I feel like a lot of business owners, like you mentioned, love the kind of hands-on support that ADP provides through Atanai and myself of like, hey, business owner, like let's talk through your specific plans and goals and let me tell you what I've learned and how that applies to you, which I think is really helpful because like Atanai mentioned, like a lot of times business owners, they might go into business to go into retail, right? And they don't understand 401k versus simple IRA conversations. So it's like, how can we bring some of the complicated back office stuff and simplify it and tailor it to them? And then, like you mentioned, kind of the ongoing, the support and the education. I always say, like, ADP, data is nearly our middle name, right? When it comes to resources and education. And, like, there's nowhere else they're going to find better resources. And especially when it comes to the retirement piece, I think knowledge is power because when we're talking about retirement plans, we're talking about people's money. It's really important that people take the time to slow down and figure out how their money could work for them. So there's tons of online resources and calculators and tools that business owners can use to adjust their plans and things like that over time.
Right. And I agree with you on that. And I think a lot of times when I have talked to a lot of people, in the business and outside of the business, it amazes me how people are like, well, I'm going to go out and get another job so I can, prepare for my retirement. Like, why are you having to feel like you got to work these extra hours in order to think that you need more money to bring in? And a big part of that is because they haven't been educated. They don't understand that having to go out and work another 8-hour job, that's great, but you're still not going to get the money that you need. It's just understanding what those resources are, to prepare you for retirement, how the ways that you can invest in yourself without having to feel like you got to break your back in order to get the extra funds that you think you need. So I think it's amazing, that you guys have these programs available. And like I said, it's so easy to limit yourself, especially when you're working for an organization and a company that provides the services, but you don't really think much of it. You just kind of react because you have to, you understand? So, it's one of, right.
The other thing I've noticed sometimes, and I don't know if this applies to some of your listeners, but, especially like startup companies, a lot of them, they cash in their retirement in order to start their company. Like they might have a 401k or a retirement plan and they use that money to start their business, which I'm not opposed to that. But the problem is they just kind of depleted some of their future retirement. And so I talk to a lot of business owners that feel like they're behind because of that. Fast forward 5-10 years, they've started their company and it's very easy to just kind of forget that they've not put money aside. So I think that's really something to consider too. Like I've had people use their retirement accounts to start businesses, which can be awesome. But we also have to remember, a lot of times business owners, because they don't have the luxury of working for someone, there's a lot of benefit to starting something for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people when you're coming into business, it's okay to hold on to your the money that you have. So in other words, if you're working right now, don't just get up and quit. Look at that as, hey, this is guaranteed income. This will set you off. even if you do have that retirement money, set it to the side. That way you don't have to pull that right away. Utilize the tool that you have and start slowly. Educate yourself on what that startup looks like what Anthony was talking about earlier when we were talking about having a startup guide. People just don't want to take the time sometimes just to read. Take your time. Understand that it doesn't have to be an overnight success, because it takes years to build a good, not good business, but a great business, right? It's not something that just happens overnight. So to have these resources available and to be able to get involved, there's no more excuses of, well, I don't have the information. It's truly about, where do you find it? Who can you connect with? And then, like I said, I'm thankful that I have this partnership, because now I can truly connect people in a way that, it's one thing for me to tell you how the process runs, because I've been doing it off and on for years myself, but it affects me. And so how does that affect the other individual? And this is the reason why having these discussions are so important. So I want to dive in a little bit, Atanai, about some of the trainings that you guys are providing, and what are some of the other items that you may have going on for the month of August that people need to be more aware of, and they can start looking at and having these discussions with you.
Yeah, the awesome about ADP is that we are heavily involved in every part of the business. ADP offers like a series of webinars that business owners can watch and hear. They can put it all in the background. Something that we have going on for this month is obviously lots of retirement things going on, but then also getting ready for PEOs. That's a little bit about total source. That's for businesses that kind of, are more established and everything. But since it's the end of the year, they might be looking into benefits and renewals and trying to capture everything in an umbrella. So those are some details that are going to be pushed out. But we also, there's honestly, with ADP, it's not really about timing, because you could need payroll or workers' comp or retirement at any point of the year. And with ADP, it's like we're always going to be there. So it could be January 1st. It could be mid-May or mid-August. So that's a little bit about that. But other resources that we have going on this month, Tasha, do we have something about retirement going on with ADP of a webinar that you know of?
I believe we have some coming up because of some of the recent legislation that was passed in regards to the retirement piece. So we can be sure to post some of that stuff on like the landing page when there's I think even some like on-demand ones that are available now to just kind of touch on some of the recent tax credits and things like that in regards to retirement.
Okay. Yeah, because that's important. As I know, like I said, I've been providing a link so that people can kind of follow to see what's available throughout the month and so forth, so that it's always available, so they don't have to necessarily depend and say, hey, I need to reach out to you and can you give me that information? We'll always have that provided, whether it's on the landing page, whether it's on our social media platforms. Definitely we'll have the information so that people can just connect immediately and just follow what they feel comfortable with, and then that also will give them the opportunity to listen and learn, and then can reach back out to ADP Rep, which is Atanai, so that we can, she can have that conversation to help people get started as well. So what else would you guys like to start talking about? We have a few more minutes. Is there anything else new that you would like to mention that's coming out soon?
Yeah, I'll just mention briefly kind of in regards to the retirement that I was, briefly touched on with some of these tax credits, which is why I think it's even more applicable for small businesses to at least learn their options when it comes to potentially offering a retirement benefit for themselves, or if they have employees, because there's been some legislation that was just passed at the end of 2023 that allows small business owners to capitalize on some tax credits that help offset the cost of an administrative plan or the potential cost of a match for their employees. Because I think there's really been this push recently legislatively to get small business owners to start plans for, some of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. People are cashing in their 401k plans. A lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
Don't think it's available, or they don't think it's an option to put a little bit aside. So that's probably one of the most recent things that's happened, is because in some states, it's even becoming mandated that some small businesses, Atanai, you mentioned that different states have different rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing for retirement. There's some states that require small business owners to start stuff. So that'll be all part of the resources and things that we have online that business owners can go online and read how some of that legislation affects them, which is cool.
Yeah, right. And that's important, right? And that's important. Yeah. The tax piece is what most people turn a blind eye to. They don't think about it until the end of the year or something else
till
comes
tax
up.
time.
Right. And then it's like, well, what? I didn't know anything about that. But and this is the reason why this is so important to have these conversations again, about educating yourself and educating your business, because being a business is a constant growing process. It's not about, like I said, having perfection up front. But I think a big part of the problem with most people in their business are so focused on the craft, and they don't think about all the things that come with that beyond just their craft and what they're doing. They're being the expert at what they're doing. So this is so key, because the tax piece is the things that we just don't know. And I always tell people, stand to the side, stop trying to do things you don't know how to do, because that will get you in more trouble than it will be helping you. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to save a few dollars, it's not worth it, right? So it's very great. It's great to have this education available, and being able to reach out to Natasha to help with that. So Natasha, what I would like for you to do is share your contact information with us, so that if they do want to directly reach out to you before, and they feel like they're already, established business, they definitely want to just talk about retirement. Could you please provide your information?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, my job is really just to walk business owners through their options to see if it makes sense for them now or in the future. And like you mentioned, it's a growing process. And sometimes it's a tax play more so than anything. So we'll absolutely share my contact information so business owners can reach out and kind of have this individual conversations and resources too.
Excellent. So what we'll do is that, I'll definitely have the information. We'll provide it in the show notes so that people will be able to review that and reach out. But of course, the first person we want to be able to reach out to is our ADP Rep, which is Atanai. So Atanai, I know that you have a slew of information to provide, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So before, though, we let you go, Natasha, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on and spending time and providing your information.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, again, I appreciate it, and glad that you were able to get in here so we can get this done, because I know we've been talking about this for a little while. So thank you for your time.
Yes, we appreciate it. I appreciate you guys letting me join, and look forward to talking with some of your listeners.
Well, all right. Well, again, we'll be talking to you soon, because we're going to be doing more of these retirement series. We'll have more discussion about it. We'll have things where we'll be taking each one of those sections of information that you talked about this evening on how to set up your retirement. We'll start talking about that one by one as well. So we'll be talking with you again soon.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. And so back to you, Atanai. So what else we got a couple more minutes. So is there anything else you would like to share before we end our conversation this afternoon?
Yeah, I want to make sure everybody that's listening is don't be afraid to reach out. My job is to be a consultant and actually walk you through every single step of setting up your business successfully. I think what people shy away from when talking to a big company like ADP, they're like, they're too busy working on something else. They're not ever going to answer my questions. No, this is what the partnership is about. For you to have a guided person, which would be me in this partnership, to reach out, ask questions, and make sure your business is set up for success. That way, below on the notes, my contact information is there. Feel free to email me, call me with any questions, because at the end of the day, I'm here to be a resource. And with the Women in Small Business Initiative, we're helping each other, especially women. I'm a woman myself, and I want to be able to educate and help the underserved community that is growing at an immense rate. So do not be afraid to reach out. I know with our partnership, it's just to educate. Yeah, it's just to educate, and don't ever be scared. No question's a dumb question.
Right,
because at the end of the day,
right.
We're all human, but we're here to learn and ask questions and learn from each other. So definitely reach out, and And I'm excited about all the other resources we're gonna be talking about in our series, and everywhere from retirement like today and workers' comp benefits and more of the payroll and HR side of ADP.
Exactly. Yes, it's exciting. And
yeah, Kimberly, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. But the thing I want to mention too before you get off is that the thing that's important is that what people need to think about, and this is for the listeners, stop worrying about money. Stop thinking ahead before you get the information. Learn first from ADP, from Antonia, and from Natasha before you all start to think, oh my God, I can't afford this. Because that's usually the first thing that comes to mind is when people start thinking about these resources that are available. They don't really understand that education is free. Everything else comes in time, but they won't be able to help you unless they can communicate with you about what your needs are. So it's really important that everybody get that out of your mind first. Let's, sit down, have that great conversation that you're going to need to have with Antonia and Natasha about your future and about your business, because that's what's important. And I think that's the thing that, people really need to hear, because this is always the priority. Well, can I afford it? Can I afford it? Because that's the number one thing when you're new in business. It's about trying to figure out what you can and cannot afford. So this is an opportunity for them to help you walk through that process. It's not just, they're going to throw in your face, hey, here's the information. Now you figure out what you want. It doesn't work that way. We're truly here. And like I said, with our partnership, it's not just on them. As the CEO of WSBI, I'm here as well to provide those resources to help you get educated. This information is coming through the newsletters on the monthly basis. If you're not a part of the newsletter, reach out to me. I will make sure that you get that information. It's also part of the regular social media that we put out weekly as well. And then now we have the podcast series, but you don't have to stop there. Like I said, if you need to communicate directly, we're going to provide that information. I'm going to give you that here in a few seconds. But in the meantime, I want to say again, thank you so much, Antonia, for coming on and spending the afternoon with me. Can't wait to talk to you again for the next month when we come out with our next series. But until then, thank you. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. All right. So now the one thing that I want to talk about here is, like I said, before we close tonight's show, we learned how ADP connects with you personally and professionally. So again, don't be afraid to reach out. That is so important for you to do, is to reach out to us if you need help. So this leads me to ask you, listeners, are you ready to uplift your business? Reach out to me at Kimberly at WSBILC@gmail.com, and let's chat about your dreams and turn them into goals. Want more of your resource for success? Monetary donations to support the podcast are now accepted on Cash App, PayPal, Good Pods, Tip Jar, or go directly to the website at www.wsbilc.com. To learn more on how to better leverage your business, ADP has identified 5 primary challenges: hiring, financing, access to growth resources, employee experience, and access to payroll and HR tools. Educating yourself on what's best for your business is free, people. Contact our ADP rep. You just heard her, Atanai Nunez-Samaniego. I will make sure that you have her information. If you want to call her, here's the number, 317-983-8287. We'll also make sure you have her email address. But again, I would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We'll be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcast. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.